Hi guys, welcome back to our channel Swipe to Learn. Today we are back with another video in our DBMS series. We'll be seeing about relational DBMS, its basic concepts in detail today. Let's get started. We have discussed about the RDBMS rules in the previous video. If you haven't watched it, please do watch it and come back. We have discussed about the Scott's 12 rules and their principles. So, what is RDBMS? RDBMS, we have already seen it's a kind of relational database model, and RDBMS is a kind of DBMS which is based on the relational model introduced by the EF code. EF code is also called as father of DBMS. In this relational model, as you all know, we have discussed in the types of data models video, this data is stored in the table format and it is represented as tuples like rows and columns. It's used to manage the relational database. It's a RDBMS, it's a collection of organized set of tables. The tables are not randomized, they are organized with relations and tuples. So what is a table generally? A table is a column, a collection and combination of rows and columns. But a table can have duplicate row of data, while a true relation cannot have duplicate data. Like if you say we have multiple names and its table is the most simplest form of data structure, and if you see, you can understand with a glance. Okay, so what is, as you all know, a single entry in a table is called as a tuple or row. If I say here, these are all tuples like 1 comma Adam comma 34 is a tuple. This is a row, whereas ID, name, age are the attributes of the entity student. It's the same of entity. Entities attributes will become the column names here, right? A table consists of several rows and each record can be broken down into the several parts known as attributes. As you see here, the employee table, it consists of attributes ID, name, and age. The relational schema. What is relation schema? It describes the structure of the relation with the name of the relation, its attribute, its name, everything. That's called as a schema. Suppose I say table employee, it consists of ID, name, age. If I say this is called as schema, it consists of the name of the table, its attributes, and followed by types. This is how relational schema looks. And relation key is an attribute which can identify a particular row and a table. Like I call it like a primary key which uniquely identifies the entity, right? In the same way, relational key. Here is a pictorial representation. These are called as rows or tuples or records. And we discussed about the primary key in earlier. It uniquely identifies the row, and we will also have a dedicated video on all the different types of keys in the next video. And these are called as columns. Columns or fields or attributes, whatever we call, will be of the same name. And we call the individual values or as data items or column values, and attributes as column name. Okay, these are the terminology and naming conventions in the RDBMS table. Let's move on. So what is a constraint? It's like constraints, like it's not touched. Most of the tutors won't touch this topic about the constraints. But these are very important concept. Every relation should abide or follow some constraint to be a valid and legal relation, right? These constraints are called as relational integrity constraints. Like constraints is something called as condition. To be a valid relation, it must follow certain condition. Okay. The three main integrity constraints are key constraints, domain constraints, and referential integrity constraints. We'll see with each of the constraint in detail. So what is key constraint? Like, we store the data in the tables and we have more than many number of attributes, like more than one attributes. And the key constraint specifies that each attribute in a column which can be used to fetch data and row. This key attribute should never be null, similar to kind of primary. Like attribute should never be null and same for two different rows. Like it should be unique and it should not be null. It's called as the primary key constraint or key constraint, any you can call. For example, in the employee table, if you see with the ID should not be null. Like if the ID is null, then there's no employee with null ID, right? And it should be unique for each and every. So then we call this employee ID as our key attribute. Same kind of primary key. You can also call it as primary key constraint or key constraint. Let's see with the domain constraint. Domain constraint refers like defined for the values that can be stored. We cannot store address of the employee in the column for name. So like whatever name the column possesses, it should be meaningful of the data items which are stored. And a mobile number cannot exceed 10 digits. These are all basic principles that are set by the developer or the database administrator. So those are called as domain constraints. So if in the name you can't keep 75, right, or 15 numbers, those are restricted in the age. In the same way, specializations. If you see with the region, I need the domain always should be within India. So this is a domain constraint. So this is how example like domain constraints are like most will be generic or specified by the database administrators. And integrity constraints. If a table reference to some data from another table, then that table data should be present for referential integrity constraint to hold true. Like I say customer ID 1, 2, 3. I have customer ID and their first names and last names. This is my customers table and I also have orders table. In my orders table for order ID 101, I have the order date, amount and customer ID. If I say here one customer ID, I have a customer with this ID 1, right? It should map 1. If the customer ID say 10, in my table I don't have the customer 10. So whatever I gave, it doesn't hold the data. So here referential integrity constraint violate. So that whatever the customer ID we have, it should be in the customer's table. In the same way, for the order 102, I have the customer ID with 2 here. So and their details. So it provides a connection between the two tables, right? So when we have the connection between the two tables which uniquely identify, and the parent table is called as primary key, and the primary key in the other table will act as a foreign key. We'll discuss about each of these keys in detail in the next video. Okay. And how we convert the entity to table. We know entity in ER model is completely changed to tables, and entities will become, and attributes of the entity will converted into the columns, and the primary key specified will become the primary key. Primary key will be the same, and entities a table is created. So I have an ER model with student, name, ID, address, age. If I need to convert this ER model to table, how you can write? If I say with the student table, columns, ID, name, age, and address. I'll specify this ID as the primary key constraint. That's it. See, if you see with employee, employee number, employee name, and salary, right? In the employee table, I have this column, employee number, employee name, and attributes are converted to column names. In the same way, here the ER diagram, customer, customer name, and customer ID, customer table, and the address, the composite attributes are classified to individual columns in the table. So this is how when you have composite attribute and you are converted into RDBMS table. So we go with the relation like employee table, employee ID, employee name, employee address. And the skill is the multi-valued attribute. So I am making it event a new as employee ID and skill as an another table called employee skill. And we provide the connection like this. In the same way, relationships like employee has dependent. So how here employee ID will be the primary key with attributes like employee name and date of birth, and the dependent table have dependent name, its gender, and the employee ID. Here employee will act as the foreign key. See primary key and foreign key, and what is the relation with the employee. So this is like how primary, and if you have dependency you link them like this. So I think you got to know how the entities are converted into tables. So in the previous video of drawing ER diagrams, you have drawn several ER diagrams. Try converting the ER diagrams into the relational DBMS tables so that you get a conversion of how the individual attributes relations are mapped into tables. If you have any queries, please drop in the comment box. We'll solve it together. Congratulations on kickstarting your journey in DBMS, RDBMS especially. Keep practicing and let your code flow like a well structured. Thank you guys for watching. We'll be coming with another new video in the next weeks. Thank you.